for years, it really seemed like marijuana in America was on this one-way street straight toward legalization. But the reality? Oh, it's so much messier. It's this tangled, confusing maze of conflicting laws, where what's totally legal in one state could get you into serious trouble just one state over. And get this, even the lawmakers writing the rules are getting lost in the confusion.
So to really wrap your head around how messy this can get, let's kick things off with a story out of Alabama. It really captures the perfect storm of confusion that's brewing right now.
Okay, check out this paradox. You have a state representative, Andy Witt, who championed a new law to regulate consumable hemp products. Things like Delta-8 or CBD gummies. But now, he's actively fighting the very rules that were created to enforce the law he wrote. It's just a classic case of legislative whiplash.
So, Witt's argument is basically that the state board just went rogue. He's saying they created rules that are actually weaker than what his original bill was going for. This kind of disconnect between the people who write the laws and the agencies that have to enforce them, it's creating this chaotic legal landscape. And honestly, it's a problem we're seeing pop up all over the country.
And all this local drama is playing out right as a massive, truly historic shift is happening at the federal level. It's a change that promises to shake everything up, but at the same time might not fix as much as you'd think. So President Trump has directed the Attorney General to reclassify cannabis. This is huge because it's the federal government officially recognizing that it has medicinal benefits. This move, it signals a monumental change in federal drug policy, something we haven't seen in over 50 years. Now, to really grasp how big of a deal this is, we gotta look at the Controlled Substances Act, the CSA. It basically organizes drugs into 5 categories or schedules based on their medical use and how easily they can be abused. And believe me, where a drug lands on this list changes everything. So here's what that actually looks like. Marijuana is moving from Schedule 1, that's the most restrictive category, right alongside drugs like heroin and LSD, over to Schedule 3. This new category? It includes substances like ketamine and testosterone, which are recognized as having real medical uses and a much lower potential for dependence. It's a massive shift in perspective. But here's where that maze we talked about gets even more twisted. This huge federal reclassification doesn't just magically smooth out all the conflicts between federal and state law, especially when another constitutional right gets involved, the Second Amendment. And this leads us to one of the biggest questions people are asking. Does this change mean that marijuana users can finally, legally own guns? Well, the answer really shines a light on the deep disconnect that still exists between the feds and the states. For now, the answer is a hard no. You see, even as a Schedule 3 drug, marijuana is still a federally controlled substance. And that means, under federal law, anyone who uses it is still considered an unlawful user and is flat out prohibited from owning a firearm.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where gun industry groups are sending out alerts, warning firearm dealers, hey, don't change a thing. They're making it crystal clear that even with this big rescheduling, a state medical marijuana card is still viewed as evidence of unlawful drug use in the eyes of the federal government. So this clash, this head-on collision between federal prohibition and state-level legalization has created this absolutely chaotic patchwork of laws. Your rights and your risks can literally change the second you cross a state line. And the main thing to see here is that there's no single trend. I mean, look at this. In Ohio, lawmakers are actually walking back parts of a law that voters just approved. At the exact same time, New York is loosening its rules to help businesses. And then you have Florida, where the entire future of legalization is just tied up in a court battle. It's a total state-by-state tug-of-war.
And while the popular story we all hear is that legalization is this unstoppable force, there's a pretty surprising counter-movement that's quietly been picking up some serious steam.
And we're not talking about a fringe idea here. No, these are organized, well-funded efforts that are working to put the question of legalization right back on the ballot, forcing voters to decide all over again. Just take Massachusetts, for example. A repeal campaign there has already gathered, get this, more than 78,000 certified signatures. That's more than enough to get a measure on the 2026 ballot to roll back recreational cannabis, though they'd keep medical use in place.
And it's not just Massachusetts. Over in Arizona, where legalization passed with a solid 60% of the vote back in 2020, opponents are now trying to collect over 250,000 signatures to try and get a full repeal on the 2026 ballot.
Okay, so after wandering through this maze of contradictions, what's the real takeaway from all this? What should you be thinking about?
Well, that federal move to reschedule marijuana, it's absolutely a historic step.
but it is far from a magic bullet. It doesn't solve the fundamental conflict between federal law and the dozens of states that have already built their own legal markets.
So what this all means is that the future of cannabis in America isn't going to be decided by one single law. Oh no, it's going to be decided by a whole series of ongoing fights in courtrooms, in state legislatures, and at the ballot box.
So the federal government is finally tipping its hat to the medical value of cannabis, but the states are pulling in completely opposite directions, and our fundamental rights are caught right in the crossfire. It leaves us with a huge, critical question. In this patchwork of laws, who's actually going to have the final say in defining the future of marijuana in America?